How are you all doing? Today I want to do a video on finding your soulmate. We live in a day and age where we have so many things being said about finding your soulmate. You can go watch on a Hallmark channel and find some interesting tips as to how to find a soulmate. You can probably browse through YouTube and you might find a lot of videos over there on finding your soulmate. But I want you to take my wisdom because I have experience handling and giving advice and suggestions to people, and more so I'm a minister who has almost 2 decades of ministry experience coming from 2 different continents. So I hope this video can cross-culturally be able to communicate to your heart in such a way that I would make not only sense to you, but also that I would win your heart and that you would take my advice and my counsel. My hope after you viewing this video is that you would make the right choice and that you would prayerfully experience life change. Now, finding your soulmate is so important because relationship can either make it or you can break it. You can either be happy or you can really be messed up big time. So finding your soulmate is very important. First of all, the concept of finding your soulmate is so limited. It is a secular terminology. And as for a Christian perspective, I want you to know that a soulmate, or we say as one who God created, a special person for you. It's not just that when you enter into a room where you find a person sometimes and there's a sparkle in their eye and there was love at first sight and things so happen so magically and that you fell in love with that person. That's not always the reality. That could happen, but I want to suggest to you many a times you have to prayerfully deal with this concept because you're going to end up leading a life, living with this person for a long time. And if you're one who believes as me and many others in monogamous relationship, you're going to believe that for the rest of your life you have to live with this person. So I want to suggest to you that there are some things which over time I have understood. And first of all, you have to be a person who can take it in prayer to God, because there is no one who can understand you, love you like God. Perhaps like me, you had come from a broken family and you couldn't trust your own judgments, and many times the guys that you dated where you thought, one of them for your ex, your past, was a good choice, but however things did not work out. But I want you to know, every time you come into your place where you find yourself, your mind is saying, and you have a red flag, I want you to know, perhaps those red flags are indications that God is saying, no, this is not the person that I have for you. So when you take it prayerfully before God, God who created you knows who He has for you. There is someone who is good, that is waiting for you, who is going to give that best life that God has for you. Now, let me tell you, we live in a day and age where things have to happen instant and quick and so fast that, we don't have time to pause and think. And with technology, with so much of sexting happening, we have so much sexual content on our texting that we fail to realize it is violating some of the relational boundaries that you're supposed to have in a pure consecrated relationship. That brings me to point number 2, where consecration is so important when you are finding your soulmate. You want to be able to consecrate yourself into a lifestyle of purity. Now let me say this to you when I suggest purity, because some of us come from broken families where you were being abused, so many things have happened, your judgments are so haywire, you've been wired differently, and the only kind of language that you speak is perhaps, hey man, the only way I know how to indulge in relationship is through sexual contact or do something. And sometimes when you go that route, it messes up the relationship, because relationships are meant in phases and in layers. It has to be built up. And when you build up the relationship gradually, then you have a fun-filled, excited relationship. It is being said, it is not just marrying the right person. So it's not just marrying the person who is the perfect will of God, but also becoming the perfect person, becoming the will of God for that person's life. For example, when you marry or when you find that person, when you find that woman of your dream, she becomes the will of God for your life, and God's blessing would be upon her life. So whether whichever stage you are, probably you are discerning to find whether he or she is in the will of God. Let me ask you this question. Stop and think for a moment. See if there is any red flags that are popping up. If there are red flags popping up, those are very good indications letting you know that perhaps this is not the will of God. Sometimes you might find character flaws. Sometimes there might be issues in every person. Now, there are certain things that you can compromise, and there are certain things that you cannot compromise on. So that brings me to the point number 3. Third, you have a wish list. A wish list should be a point, step-by-step points that say, you know what, these are things, virtues and qualities and characteristics that my man or woman should have. And these are some of the values that person should hold. And this is very important to me. And I'm not compromising on any of the values or characteristics which are important to me. Now, your top 5 should be based on the scriptures. And based on your 5 points, it is important that they be scripturally in tune on family background, virtues, Christian, non-Christian. Want to say, you know what, I can compromise on certain things, and there are certain things I am not willing to compromise. And your top 5 should be things that you would not compromise based on the scriptures or based on the word of God, and just not on human opinion. So having said that, I want you to know there can be other points in your wish list that which you're willing to compromise, and there should be areas would say, if that person is a little dark, or if this person is a little fat or thick, and you find them, there are certain things which you can give and take. You cannot just say, oh, I don't find that person attractive. The concept of being attractive and non-attractive is so thinking. And we live in a day and age where people think that we have to be attracted in order to find a soulmate. No, you don't need to be attracted. In fact, you might fall in love, and then out of that place of love, you might find characteristics which are attractive in a person. You don't really, wait to find attraction. So it's a just different way of thinking. You have made those 5 points. I want you to then move into a place where you're wanting to communicate with that person. Find out if that person is a good communicator. Many times we live in a day and age that communication takes a backseat, and sometimes people say this generally, it's good to marry your best friend. The reason is because that person is good at communicating, and you really have that room of trust to that person. There's truth to it. The reason you want to find that truth is because communication is based on relationship, and not everyone is a good communicator. So what you want to do is, when you are finding your soulmate, when you are finding that right person, you want to see for your future in becoming the right person, you want to see that you want to be an excellent communicator. So many of the things which I've said, for example, consecrating yourself. Consecration is just not for now. You want to consecrate your relationship because later on in life, out of you comes a wonderful offspring, an offspring that will be a blessing to many and that will attain greatness. Now let me tell you, Without consecration, whenever there is compromise, whenever there is a situation, things are happening, you would find yourself being in a place, living a life not only of compromised virtue, but also you would face yourself just being little lower than your expectation. You know that you have greatness inside of you. You know that your relationship with that person is supposed to take you into the greater heights. And I want to encourage you, when you are into the will of God, there's a double-fold blessing over your life. And so, hopefully through these videos, that you would be able to find your soulmate. Number one, as I said, take it prayerfully to the Lord. Prayerfully ask the Lord, God, you show me that right person. And I want you to suggest this. Do this as a homework, maybe for 7 days or maybe for a month. If you can pray, asking God, God bless this person with whom I'm going to be in relationship with. Or bless help me to find the right person, and God will intervene into that situation and He will bless your relationships. Number one. Number two, have a list, and in this list, let's be transparent with the people who love you. If you have your friends, your mom and dad, involve them in that relationship and ask them if they see any blind spots, if they see any red flags. And if they see any red flags, you have to hear them, because they know you well and they love you well. Sometimes it's hard to think about it. It's sometimes when you have put some mileage into a relationship and it's hard to come out of that relationship. There are so many things that are involved in a relationship. However, having said that, I want you to know, when you have found that person, that soulmate, I want you to be bold in taking that step in asking that person. You want to pop the question by asking, will you marry me? Or, if you are from a different culture, where you are willing to negotiate and talk and say, you know what, we have this concept of arranged marriage where we can have, take this person on a date and marry this person, however you want to do it. But the next step for you would be marrying the person. Now, my personal counsel, suggestion would be avoid mind games. Avoid any form of mind games and try to make it just straight. Try not to be confusing to everyone who are involved, and try to be plain and direct in your relationship when you're entering into finding your spouse and having a relationship with someone. Find the right person and God's blessing will be upon your life. Amen.